Hello and welcome to Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Update. My name is Todd Goldfinger, and here are today's top news stories. Thank you for being with us. A California federal judge on Monday sentenced the Mexican man acquitted of murder in the 2015 shooting death of a woman on a San Francisco pier to the 7 years he's already spent in jail, bringing to a legal close the case that ignited a national firestorm over immigration, crime, and sanctuary cities. Jose Inez Garcia Zarate was in the U.S. illegally when Kate Steinle, 32, was fatally shot along a crowded pier 14 where she was walking with her father and a family friend. He faces deportation, and U.S. District Judge Vince Chabria told him in court to never return to the U.S. Next news. Vice President Kamala Harris will have an opportunity to connect with leaders from Latin America and the Caribbean as she welcomes them to her home state this week for the Summit of the Americas. But whether she can demonstrate her clout as the hemisphere's premier gathering being held on U.S. soil for the first time since 1994 remains an open question. Since Joe Biden's days crisscrossing Latin America as vice president, the region's leaders have come to expect direct access to powerful interlocutors inside the White House. However, other than Harris taking on the thankless task of addressing the root causes of migration, for which progress has been slow, the region has seen little of her, a symptom, experts say, of a larger U.S. neglect of the region. Next news. An American woman is set to plead guilty Tuesday to leading an all-female battalion of Islamic State militants in Syria, court records show. A plea hearing for Allison Fluke Ekron is to take place in federal court in Alexandria, Virginia, according to a court notation. Her lawyer did not immediately return an email seeking comment. Fluke Ekron, who once lived in Kansas, was brought to the U.S. in January to face a criminal charge of providing material support to a foreign terrorist organization. She moved to Egypt in 2008, and starting in late 2016, according to prosecutors, she led an all-female Islamic State unit in the Syrian city of Raqqa that was trained in the use of AK-47 rifles, grenades, and suicide belts. Next news, please. A slate of Republican U.S. House members in heavily Democratic California are facing primary challengers on Tuesday in races that will help determine control of Congress. No incumbents appear at risk of losing their primary, but the districts will be among the country's marquee races in November. Two of the House members are trying to surmount challenges tied to former President Donald Trump. One voted to support the former president's impeachment after the U.S. Capitol insurrection, while others fought against it. We're going to take a short break from the daily global English news of Millennium News TV 24/7. Please stay with us. Thank you. Hello and welcome back to Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Update. Here's the continuation of today's top stories. Thank you so much for being with us. Several Democrats are competing Tuesday for the chance to challenge Republican Chuck Grassley in what will likely be an uphill effort to defeat one of the Senate's longest-serving members. The Democratic Party largely centers on Abby Finkenauer, a former congresswoman from Northeast Iowa, and Mike Franken, a retired Navy vice admiral. Physician Glenn Hurst, a city councilman and active member of the Iowa Democratic Party State Central Committee, is also running, but he has raised and spent far less money and is not well known around the state. Finkenauer, who served a single term in the U.S. House, is one of the most prominent Democrats in Iowa. She earned a reputation as a wunderkind, a wonder child, in the legislature and was the second youngest woman elected to Congress, helping Democrats retake control of the House that year. Next news. Next news, please. Two of New York's longest-serving members of Congress have turned from allies to rivals after a court redrew the state's congressional maps, scrambling the favorable landscape Democrats hope to set for themselves this election year. U.S. Representative Jerry Nadler, a major figure in former President Donald Trump's first impeachment, and Representative Carolyn Maloney, a champion of 9/11 rescue and recovery workers, and now running against each other in a Democratic primary to represent a reconfigured district in Manhattan. The intra-party battle is not the result Democrats envisioned for the once-a-decade redistricting in the state where they control the governor's mansion and the legislature. Nadler, 74, and Maloney, 76, each were first elected to Congress 30 years ago and have risen to chair the powerful House Judiciary and Oversight Committees, respectively. Next news. Next news, please. I gotta find it. Hold on. Oh, excuse me. Wide-ranging bipartisan legislation unveiled Tuesday would regulate cryptocurrencies and other digital assets following a series of high-profile busts and failures. It's unclear, though, whether the bill proposed by Senators Kirsten Gillibrand, Democrat, New York, and Cynthia Lummis, Republican from Wyoming, can clear Congress, especially at a time of heightened partisanship ahead of a midterms election. The bill also comes as advocates for cryptocurrency have become bigger and more free spending. Players in Washington. The bill, called the Responsible Financial Innovation Act, proposes legal definitions of digital assets and virtual currencies would require the IRS to adopt guidance on merchant acceptance of digital assets and charitable contributions, and would make a distinction between digital assets that are commodities or securities, which has not been done before. Next news. A documentary filmmaker who recorded members of the far-right Proud Boys extremist group as they stormed the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, 2021, says he will testify during the first hearing of the House panel investigating the insurrection of January 6th, 2021. Nick Quested, a British filmmaker who also witnessed some of the group's planning before the attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, 2021, confirmed to the Associated Press that he will be among the witnesses in Thursday night's primetime hearing. The panel has not yet announced a full list of those who will testify. Quested was a witness to some of the most extraordinary events that took place that day, accompanying members of the extremist group as they walked to the Capitol from President Donald J. Trump's speech in front of the White House, as they broke through police barriers and eventually into the Capitol building, as hundreds of Trump supporters moved through the Capitol to protest his defeat. We're going to take a short break from the daily global English news of Millennium News TV 24/7. Please stay with us. Thank you so much. God bless. Thank you. Hello and welcome back to Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Update. Here's a continuation of today's top stories. Thank you for being with us. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson scrambled to patch up his tattered authority, what's left of it, on Tuesday after surviving a no-confidence vote that laid bare deep divisions in his Conservative Party and raised serious doubts about how long he can stay in office. Under party rules, Boris Johnson is now free from another challenge for a year. But previous prime ministers who have faced no confidence votes have been terminally damaged. And a growing number of conservative lawmakers worry that the famously people-pleasing Boris Johnson is now tarnished by the Partygate ethics scandal and has become a liability with voters, tarnished beyond compare. Boris Johnson, nevertheless, vowed to get on with the job and focus on what matters to British people, defined by him as the economy, healthcare, and crime, after conservative lawmakers voted by 2011 to 148 to support him as their leader in Britain. Next news. Next news, please. Moving right along. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson may have survived a no-confidence vote, but his grip on power is far from secure. Many compare his position to that of his predecessor, who can remember now, Theresa May, who won a similar vote by a larger margin than Boris Johnson, who was nonetheless ousted 6 months later. In quotes, the history for prime ministers who survive confidence votes Isn't that great? Said Tim Bale, a professor of politics at Queen Mary University of London. A look at how previous conservative prime ministers fared after leadership challenges against them. Margaret Thatcher survived a first leadership challenge in 1989, around the time of the Berlin Wall. But when the fall of the Berlin Wall, sorry. But a second one the next year spelled her downfall. In 1989, a little-known lawmaker, Anthony Meyer, launched a challenge against Margaret Thatcher, who had been reelected as party leader unopposed every year since 1974. Thatcher won comfortably by 314 votes to 33. But counting deliberately spoiled ballot papers, about 60 had failed to endorse her, an early indication that her position, Margaret Thatcher's position at the time, was very shaky. Next news. Target. Remember Target? Target is canceling orders from suppliers, particularly for home goods and clothing. And it's slashing prices further to clear out amassed inventory ahead of the critical fall and holiday shopping seasons. The actions come after a pronounced spending shift by Americans in the US from investments in their homes to money spent on travel, night outs for dinner, and dressier clothes, a change that arrived much faster than major retailers had anticipated. The speed at which Americans pivoted away from pandemic spending was laid bare in most recent quarterly financial filings from a number of major retailers. Target reported last year its profit for the fiscal first quarter tumbled 52% compared with the same period last year. Sales of big TVs and small kitchen appliances that Americans loaded up on during the pandemic have faded, leaving Target with a bloated inventory that it said must be marked down to sell. Next news. After surgery, some cancer patients can safely skip radiation or chemotherapy, according to two studies exploring shorter, gentler cancer care. Researchers are looking for ways to precisely predict which cancer patients can avoid unneeded treatment to cut down on harmful side effects and unnecessary costs. One new study used a blood test to determine which colon cancer patients could skip chemotherapy after surgery. Another suggests some low-risk breast cancer patients can omit radiation after lumpectomy from the lumps in the breasts. The research was discussed at the annual meeting of the American Society of Clinical Oncology, which wrapped up Tuesday in Chicago. The colon cancer study, funded by the Australian and US governments and non-profit groups, was published Saturday by the New England Journal of Medicine. We're going to take a short break from the daily global English news of Millennium News TV 24/7. Please stay with us. Thank you. Hello and welcome back to Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Update. Here's the continuation of today's top stories. So thank you so much for being with us. Spain's former king has decided to postpone a second visit home since he established residence abroad after his reputation was tarnished by financial scandal. Spanish news agency EFE reported Tuesday Juan Carlos, 84, returned to his country last month for the first time in nearly 2 years to attend a sailing event in northwest Spain. At that time, the mayor of Sanjenjo said that the ex-monarch was planning to come back for another sailing event in the town this month. But according to EFE and other Spanish media, Juan Carlos has decided not to return for the second time in as many months for private reasons. He resides in Abu Dhabi, of course, capital of the United Arab Emirates. Next news. As a knot of journalists stood across from a mortuary witnessing a funeral for a child killed in the Uvalde school massacre. Some people passing by didn't disguise their anger. In quotes. "Y'all are the scum of the earth," said one woman, surveying the cameras. When tragedy comes to town in the 21st century, the media follows, focusing the world's eyes on a community during its most difficult hours. Columbine, Sandy Hook, and now, in 2022, Uvalde, Texas. The list of places synonymous with horrible mass killings in America keeps growing. Journalists are calling upon to explain what happened and sometimes to ask what are called uncomfortable questions in places where many people want to be left alone to grieve. To grieve, respectfully. Is it possible to do it better to coexist within a moment no one wants to be a part of? Question mark. Next news. Arturi Lekkonen is sending a team to the Stanley Cup final for the second straight season. Lekkonen scored 119 into overtime, and Colorado rallied to beat the Edmonton Oilers 6-5 Monday night, completing a 4-game sweep in the Western Conference Final and propelling the Avalanche into the Stanley Cup Final for the first time since 2001. Colorado will take on the winner of the Eastern Conference Final between the New York Rangers and two-time defending Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning. The Rangers led that best of 7 series 2-1. Game 4 is Tuesday at Tampa Bay. Lakonen repeated his feat of last season when he scored in OT in Game 6 to send the Montreal Canadiens to the final against eventual repeat champion Tampa Bay. Hockey. Don't lose your teeth. Next news. Phil Mickelson, a chief recruiter for a Saudi-funded rival league to the PGA Tour, is ending his 4-month hiatus by adding his name to the 48-man field for LIV Golf Invitational that starts Thursday outside London. Mickelson will be joining Dustin Johnson, Sergio Garcia, and 3 other former major champions in a 54-hole tournament at Centurion Golf Club with $25 million in prize money and $4 million going to the individual winner. Let's just hope he helps the homeless, in quotes. I'm ready to come back to play the game I love, but after 32 years in this new path is a fresh start, one that is exciting for me at this stage in my career, end quotes. Mickelson said in a statement posted on social media. We love social media. Not really. I don't. Mickelson also said he would be playing the last 2 majors starting June 16th in the U.S. Open at the Country Club outside of Boston. This has been the Daily Global English News Update of Millennium News TV 24/7. Thank you so much for watching and for staying with us. Please log in to get the latest news on all of our social networking sites. That means Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. On TikTok, we are Millennium News 24. Also, our YouTube channel is News Channel M24. Viewers, now on both network broadcasting, Android, iOS devices, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV. Also, all smart TV platforms. Please enjoy our entertainment, our latest news, views, and editorials. Our Millennium TV apps, Millennium TV USA Android and iOS, Millennium News Google, www.millenniumtv24.com. If you'd like some more Todd Goldfinger, you can go to toddgoldfinger.com. Please stay with Millennium News 24. We thank you. God bless you everywhere you are. Thank you so much for watching, and peace on earth.